Well, welcome everybody. Welcome to this 4-part training. So over the next 4 days, we're going to be meeting, same bat time, same bat channel right here. Different times all over the world. It's 11 a.m. in Queensland, where I am in Australia. It's a hot and sunny day. No surprise there. And I know that we're broadcasting all over the world. So welcome. And for those of you who are coming, listening to the replay, also beautiful welcome. You will be able to do all the things that people that are here live can do, i.e. the downloads, the meditations, all of the practical stuff. So no worries. And if you have to miss a day, know that it's recorded and you'll be sent the replay. And it's all good. So why are we here? Why are we here? I'm here to talk about enlightenment and money. Talk about spirituality and finances. And in most worldviews, they don't seem to match. In the Western worldview, it's sort of like, well, you're either spiritual or you're striving after the almighty buck. Right? And I have been in both places. I have sat thousands of hours on meditation cushions. I've gone into mountains and caves and traveled all over the world. I have done that and not had any money. And that's good because there's training in that. However, we need balance. And I have also been on the other side, having an accounting practice, working 12, 14 hours a day, working hard, and coming out the other end with the money and kind of looking around saying, oh, well, is this all there is? Like, there's got to be more than this. So it's all about balance. We have the one extreme, and then we have the other extreme. Who am I? For those of you who are just joining, don't know who I am, just a tiny wee little bit. I have come from Canada. I'm living here in Australia now. I've been here for the last 10 years. And I was born in Canada, right in the center, almost in Siberia, if you will. It was cold, cold, cold there. I had my first spiritual teacher was my grandmother. And I had many turning points along the way that really deeply imprinted on me in lifelong ways. So she was my first spiritual teacher. When I was 11, my parents split up. And my childhood was filled with not so great stuff. Neglect, abuse, violence of all variety. And I had to sort of wake up and be conscious all by myself. That was my first sort of dawning consciousness. I was age 11. From there, I met alcohol. Alcohol became my friend. And for the next about 20 years, I basically used alcohol as my stress reliever, as my go-to, as my friend, as the way that I was able to stay in a body. Now, I know a lot of you don't have problems connecting with spirit, but you may have challenges staying in your body. And I did. I was able to commune with the divine and talk to all these presence and all this energy, but what I struggled with was being in a body. So I chose alcohol as my stressor, as my friend, etc. Just fast forward a couple of more turning points. I left home when I was 16. I went to England. I met a man. I moved in with him. I had my first book published in my 20s. I met Buddhism in my 20s. That was another turning point when I met Buddhism, because I knew that there was more to life. I knew that, I had been raised a Catholic, a Ukrainian Catholic, very devout, and went to church, and I kind of butted up against the Catholic Church because it was like, why can't I be an altar girl? And why can't, women be priests? And, I had all this questioning. And so I had been spiritual, but I couldn't find where I fit in. In my 20s, I met Buddhism. I started to meditate. I was retreating, but I still had alcohol. So, that mix was very interesting. I'd go on long retreat and I'd come out and I'd get blasted. Some of you know this story, and some of you know this story for yourself. So it's not news. It's just a way of me letting you know that I've come exactly from the place that you've come from. whether it's alcohol or neglect or a violent relationship or, loss of a parent, or it was painful. It was painful. And that pain I covered. In my 30s, I let the booze go. And that, again, was a turning point. In my 30s, the scariest thing was I had to now figure out how to live life on life's terms, not on Angela's terms. I lived on my terms and drank. I had commune with spirit and all that, but I was not very prosperous. I was not able to manifest. In my 30s, when I put the booze down, that was when I had this absolute epiphany and catapulted to the next dimension. We say to the fourth dimension. Right now it would be the fifth dimension, the dimension of love. So in that, I then met a whole community of people, and I went into recovery. And I'm happy to report I'm almost 21 years sober from alcoholism. And also at that time, I started to move into therapy. And I did tens of thousands of hours of therapy as well. Tens of thousands of dollars. Because my the belief systems in here were rotten. They were screwy-looey. They did not serve me. And I wanted more out of life. And I could already tell in my 30s that I was brought here to do some good work. I just couldn't grasp it. I couldn't figure out what it was supposed to be. And that's because I was really, really unwell. And we have to get well in order to serve, right? We can serve wherever we're at. But at that point in time, I was very impatient. And I was like, okay, I'm sober now. Tell me how I'm supposed to serve. Tell me what I'm supposed to be doing. So the reason why I'm here is I have come through much darkness, much suffering. And even at the age of 14, that was the first time I was suicidal. And I even remember at the age of 14 thinking to myself, if I can survive and get through this, if I can help one person not suffer as greatly as I am in this moment, then my life will have had some purpose, even at 14. And I was always the wise one when I was a kid. And now as I'm aging in time and I'm watching all these whippersnappers, all these really smart, tuned in, conscious folks, they weren't around when I was growing up. I had to go to elderly people, right? Buddhist masters, etc. So we paved the way. Some of us who've been doing this work for 30 years, we've paved the way for the young ones to come in and just begin to teach. I'm watching people just do that. Whereas I've had to struggle, and now I'm here to be blasting my teachings all over the planet. I'm pleased to be doing that. Why might you be here is the question. Okay, so I'm imagining you may be a bit frustrated in your connection to the divine. You may be frustrated in not being able to manifest the same amount of money that you think you should be able to, right? You may be overly people-pleasing. You may be like approval seeking from people. I imagine that you're overly responsible for too many people and not in enough self-care, because those are the places that I came from. Absolutely people pleaser, approval seeking, didn't even know what self-care was, right? And the main belief system that I was running was I am not enough. I don't have enough. I don't do enough. That was the operating system then. Now I know I am enough. And I know I have enough, and I know I actually do enough. Sometimes that one gets carried away with me. It's like, oh, I got to do this. And it's like, Ange, you do enough. So that may be a belief that you're running. I'm not enough. I don't have enough. I don't do enough. Can you guys comment? Just say, yep, I get that one. I'm just checking in to see if you're still on with me. Yeah, all right, got it. Mm-hmm. Uh-huh, okay. Yeah. Yeah, then you might have a rebel streak in you. You may have a sabotage pattern in you, like you get going and doing lots of good things, and then you reach a hard place inside of you, and I call that the hardness inside, where we have to soften. And as we soften, the self-love comes, things get easier. But when we're hard, we sabotage. It's like that old, I'm not enough, I have to do more, I'm not good enough, come in. So I know what you want because I wanted it too. When I started sobering up and I started getting clarity, I started wanting more from the universe, more from my life. I wanted to potentialize. I wanted to realize why I had been brought to the planet. Because up until that point, it kind of, believe it or not, didn't make much sense. I remember I was in therapy. You know, I was 7 years with this guy, Tarla. Bless him, bless his heart. And I don't know, it was about year 4. And I'm sitting there and it's like, Tarla, like, you know, like I thought things would be happening by now. I thought I'd be out there working or helping the world or like doing great things. And how come it's not changing? And of course it was changing slowly, slowly. But I was being worked on at such a deep level in order to teach at that deep level for folks like you that it took longer. And I'm impatient. And I've also had to learn about patience, perseverance, all that. So he said to me actually in therapy, he said, you know what, Ange? You're right. I don't know why you're not out there yet. Be patient. And when he said, like, I don't know why you're not out there, you should be. It's like, oh God, I must be really, really broken. And the truth is that my belief systems were rotten. Okay? That's what needed to change. My spirit was never broken. There might have been tears in it, all right, because people stole from me, from my spirit. But everything else, we call it in Buddhism, the Tathagata Garbha. The mind within me was never touched, never tarnished. It's always been intact. It's always been pristine. And same for you. Same for you guys. Whatever you've gone through, whatever suffering, pain, divorce, losing of children, whatever it's been, that part of you, that quiet, still, small voice in you, absolutely pristine, never touched. That voice that tells you, you can do more, you can do better. I'm with you. I call that, I get this term from Joseph Goldstein, that I in me, that divine I in me is mighty. So there's a small me and there's a large divine me. We call it a lower self and a higher self. I'm ahead of myself though. Today's webinar, today's interaction with you is about those 3 key relationships that we need to cultivate in order for prosperity to grow. They're foundational, all right? I have, over these last 30 years, been, looking at my belief systems, praying, meditating, and I don't know if I even mentioned my work as a Buddhist, right? Being a Tibetan Buddhist, working with the Dalai Lama, all of sitting massive amounts of retreats, all of that, looking at my mind and coupling with Buddhism and the therapy that I did, the Jungian therapy that I did. Also, all of the work that I did with all of my clients in my accounting practice. I came to see a few things. And I found that you have 3 main pillars that you got to focus on as a foundation. And then take some steps towards your own balance, to your purpose and your prosperity. So today I'm just talking about the 3 pillars. And what are those 3 relationships? The first one, relationship to self. The second one, relationship to the divine, the universe, God, Buddha, Allah, whatever you want to call it. That's the second pillar. Third pillar is a relationship to others. So I'm just going to move through those 3 relationships. I'm going to ask you some questions as we go through. The first one I want to ask you is, did you download today's worksheets? Just give me a yep, or didn't receive them yet. So good-o. Yep, I'm seeing it. Good. Aren't they beautiful? Didn't they do a great job? I'm thrilled. I'm thrilled by these worksheets. So every day we're going to get some new worksheets. Lovely. Excellent. Christiane. Hello, Christiane. So in here, there's some really, really deep questions that I hope you take some time to read and integrate some of the answers, because these 3 relationships you have to deepen. So the first one is relationship to self. Now, believe it or not, there are 6 levels to our relationship to self. And James Fowler, who is a Christian theologian in the States, he has the 6 stages of faith. Now, I won't say that the 6 stages of faith necessarily correlate to the 6 levels of relationship to self. But the deeper we go inwardly, the higher we can reach and touch into the divine. And it's continuous, all right? This lifetime, and in my belief system, next lifetime, next lifetime. And St. Teresa of Avila, she has been a great mentor on the page for me. Her book, The Interior Castle, gorgeous analogy on how we go deeper inwardly. And there are more and more rooms within this great castle for us to tap into, for us to explore. And we get to explore it, we get to feel the prosperity, we get to revel in it, and then the next door is open. The next door we begin again. So relationship to self, there's one thing that must first and foremost be ascertained within each of us. And that is that animal place in us. That we have a place in us called the amygdala. And it's been given to us for protection when we were animals and other animals were coming to eat us. Okay, so you've all heard about it. It's the fight, flight, freeze mechanism within us. Now, fight, flight, freeze is that animal place. It has been given to us for that protection. However, we are safe now, especially in the Western world. We have all of the trappings. We have our food, we have our housing, we have our clothing. We're safe as human beings. We are living now in a climate of tremendous fear that has been cultivated, absolutely cultivated. And the more people are in fear, the bigger the field of energy of fear grows. After one of those shootings that we experienced in Las Vegas, I heard that the gun sales actually went up after a shooting like that, which it's just, really, really saddening. We are co-creating our reality. There is a God, there's a divine, and as humans, we're working in tandem with that reality. So it's not just all left up to this higher being, higher power to make things all work. We're part of it. So relationship to self, that animal place, which is motivated from fear, must be kept in check. We each have a default program, whether it is fighting, whether it is getting the heck out, fleeing, or if it's freezing. Okay, you freeze in fear. And where we want to get to is flow. We want to move beyond the amygdala, which is sort of in your midbrain. I point to the back here. We want to move to the frontal cortex, which is our higher executive functioning. That part of the brain can see much broader. It can make way better decisions. Now, we ask ourselves, how do we get from there to here? The first thing we have to ascertain is, am I a fighter? Do I freeze or do I flee? So just take a second right now and think of yourself. Now, you may have 2. You may have one with your personal relationships, with your spouse, your children. And you may have a second one in your workplace. So for me, in my workplace, I was a fighter. Okay, that was survival. That's how, you make money, you fight, you go get. And in my personal life, I was a freezer. So I would wait and check things out, and I would freeze and just, okay, if I felt safe, then I would go forward. Hopefully now I'm moving more and more and more into flow in both areas of my life. We have multiple areas, right? You have your physical health, you've got your emotional health, your spiritual health, etc. But predominantly you've got your public and your private. So I'm going to ask you, can you comment? Do you know what your default is? Is it flee? Is it freeze? Okay, yeah, so I'm seeing already, flee, freeze. Is there a fighter out there? I know one person is a freezer. Gorgeous, gorgeous. Thank you. Fight, flight. Yeah, yeah, yeah. So, and again, we can have two. We can have two. There you go. And get another fighter. The fighters, those who are female and fighters, we now have to learn how to receive and go into the receptive state, which is more in the feminine. Okay. And the reason why we go to these default programs is because we don't feel safe. We don't feel safe. We don't feel secure. And this stems from early childhood. Now, I'm going to talk about that tomorrow. But for today, really great just to know what's my default program, because we're in react mode. I teach techniques, EFT, emotional freedom technique, mind gems, to bring us back into our body when we get triggered, when we go into fight, flight, freeze, to come back into our heart and into our frontal cortex. But for this purpose of right now, we just need to know which we are. Relationship to self, very primary. We have a very physical body, but we also have an energetic, subtle body within us. Now, our subtle body, in Buddhism, we call it an energetic subtle body. And if you've done any reading of Eckhart Tolle, he calls it the pain body. It's an energetic body within this gross body. It holds our memory. It holds the energy from when we were children, when we were abused, when we had great things happen to us. And that subtle body cannot be accessed through thought. We have to access it through spiritual means, through energetic practices. We've heard of chakras. You have to clear your chakras through different energetic practices. So why I'm bringing this up is because we have a gross body, and we all know that. And we even know our belief system sometimes, but that's not enough. We have to move also into our unconscious. So that's another level of relationship to self. When we're in that fight, flight, freeze, and when we're trying to sort of override our belief systems, we're actually having our brains not speak to one another. When we're in our default pattern, our left brain is the only thing that's working, and it's getting us go, go, go. We need both brains. I mean, they say that actually there are brain cells in 9 places in our body. So we've got brain cells in our heart, we've got brain cells in our gut, we've got brain cells left and right brain, front and back, and I don't know where the rest of them are. I just know that there are 9. And it's true, like that's why we have that gut impulse. So relationship to self, primary importance. Service to self is service to others. Often we feel, those of us who've been people pleasers and we're such caretakers, we feel like if we take time out for ourselves, then we're feeling we're selfish. Service to self is service to others. Okay, so that's pillar number 1, relationship to self. I could go on and on and on. We could do a full 4 days just on that pillar. Suffice to say that there's lots in there, doing mantras, looking at belief systems. When you go into this document, I talk about money belief systems. Like, what are some of your money beliefs? Because you've got to come into terms with relationship to self around money. What did my dad believe about money? What did my mom believe about money? Because we are a product of both our mother and our father, right? And if we have not looked at those beliefs, we're running a tape and living out somebody else's belief. And I maintain we have to stop, look at the belief, and say, do I actually believe that? I don't like that. And that's the moment of choice. That's the moment of choice, moving back into flow, where we say, what do I choose now? I get to choose now. Okay, pillar number 2. Pillar number 2 is about relationship to source energy, to the divine energy. And just give me a thumbs up. Like, let me know, because I'm here isolated in this little room over here in Brisbane, or actually the Gold Coast. Are you getting something? Is this happening for you? Are you moving through and grooving? Because I'm having a great time. I thought I'd feel kind of silly talking to a computer, but because I know you guys are there, you're boosting me. It's fab. It's fab. I love it. Thank you. Thank you. Oh, thank you. Thank you. See, that little girl in me still needs to know you're out there listening. Thank you. Okay, pillar 2, source energy. How do we connect with it, right? And where do we connect with it? Where do we find it? Where do you find it? Because it's the source energy, the relationship to source, that is going to continue to empower you, continue to have the rocket fuel energy that you are absolutely potentialize. Okay, when I first started doing this work, I was about 20 kilos lighter, and I was invisible. So my sense of source was in my head. And it's been over these years that I've had to learn to embody it. I've had to have a deep relationship with this invisible, unknown power and have almost a marriage to it. Definitely a deep, deep relationship. The Sufis do call it a marriage to the beloved. In order for me to grow, to prosper, and to be of maximum service. So it's not just about me, it's about being of service. Now remember what I said. We have a lower self and we have a higher self. And the lower self in us, you can call it the human self, you can call it the ego, as you like. The higher self, you have a higher self with you right now. And again, I call that the I in me. Not the empirical I that is colonial and overtaking and overpowering, but that I presence, that's the divine. That I presence that is, in Buddhism we call it the Vajra pride. The divine presence. I am a divine being, and I am entitled to all that the planet has in store for me. Not only the planet, but the universe. I mean, my prayer one day is to go to the moon. So it's going to be beyond this planet, right? The I in me is in mighty. I can't do that, but the divine can. And with me and the divine together, we can do magnificent things. This relationship, is crucial. It's non-negotiable. We have been growing up in a Judeo-Christian environment where we've had intermediaries, right? The priests have been standing at the front, not allowing the women to serve in Catholicism anyway. But there's this sort of disconnect. And even to the point where some Christian churches say that meditation is evil, right? I had a priest friend of mine, or a minister friend of mine in the, I don't even know, United Church or something. I can't remember which church. And he was told to meditate actually is evil. It's the devil's work. So I understand we're fighting against 2,500 years of Judeo-Christian, what would be the word? Climate and belief systems, all right? Like huge, huge mindset. Thank you, Laura. And we have to shift that now. We have to take responsibility and shift away from the idea that God is out there. Pardon me. Let me just take a sip. As I was inhaling this dust went in. Hold on. I get so excited. I love talking about the divine. So this Judeo-Christian idea that God is outside of us as opposed to inside, and we're having a relationship with it. We have to cultivate that, okay? And go against sometimes the formal training that we've been taught. And I was talking to somebody last week about this. Take a second here. I'm just... I have to take a second. Thank you, guys. Thank you, guys. All right, I'm coming back. I think I have to slow down. I get so excited. I'm fine. Thank you, Deb. That we have beliefs about God. We have beliefs about the universe. We have an old idea of what God is or was. And it's not functioning anymore. So this second pillar about relationship to the divine, we have to reinvent. We have to fire the old God, the old sense of the divine, and create the new. And this is all part of the process of developing our faith and developing the inner castle, the inner rooms within us. So some of the ideas about connecting with the divine. And people kind of say, well, how do you do it? And I say, go to nature. Go to art galleries, because art galleries are filled with the divine incarnate in pieces of art. On the walls, in sculpture, music, those are all ways that the divine is incarnate, right in front of our eyes. I know when I was at the Tate Gallery in London and I saw some live Monets and like some of the live Chagall, like it breathtaking. I was stopped in my tracks because the divine energy was just coming through. So art galleries, synchronicities. When you have a synchronistic event that happens, God is present. The divine, the universe is present. I don't believe in coincidences. Ask for signs. I'm talking to my divine all the time. I need a sign. I need for you to tell me that you're here. I need for you to show me that you're here. Okay? And remembering always, we are co-creating this. So when we have aspirations and wishes, and they don't materialize as quickly as we want, we're not being denied by God. We're not being denied by our higher power. We're being delayed. Something is being delayed because we're not ready to receive it, or the universe hasn't put everything in place for it to manifest in the way the divine wants it to manifest for us. And our humanness gets frustrated. I myself have been incredibly frustrated over the years because I think, I want something quick, 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 right? And somebody's saying I have a hawk sitting in a tree staring at me. Oh, I wonder where that is. I go, ooh, this is good. This is good. I just totally lost my train of thought. Co-creating our reality. I'll leave it at that. I lost it. We need silence. Oh, our human impatience. Thank you. Thank you. We get impatient because our humanness wants it now. And the divine, it's like our life is like a 300-year movie, right? And we are only given the information for a second or two. That's how much information we're given. But the scope of our life is massive. But the divine does know and has all the knowledge it needs to help us create, to be in service. And we need silence. We need silence in order for the divine to talk to us. I say prayer is asking, and meditation is receiving and listening. And that still quiet voice, the divine voice, will speak to us. And there's a Sufi saying that says, God cannot pour water in a moving jug. So those of us who are fighters, who like to go, 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 we really, 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 that has been my work. To sit and meditate and go quiet and allow and receive over and over again. To learn to receive, to learn to trust, to learn to accept, to learn to allow. Right? My human impatience, come back in here. I'm co-creating with a divine power, and it is almighty. The I in me is mighty. I must trust it. So I want to hear from you. Now, do you need to fire or reinvent your relationship with the divine, with your God? Do you need to kind of write a letter to God, to the divine, to the source, and say, I fire you? I need to reinvent. So I want to hear, just quickly in the chat box, reinvent for sure, to reconnect. Yes, yes. Or perhaps right now, your version is totally intact, but you need to up and ramp up the connection of it. Don't need to fire, just need to be more in touch. Yes, you know, it's a non-negotiable if you want to prosper. You wonder how people, you know, the big Tony Robbins of the world, how do they maintain their life, their existence? They're in meditation and prayer in the mornings, every day. Right? We all have a morning ritual. And if you haven't received the morning ritual yet, there's a download waiting for you. And if you're on Facebook watching this and you want those downloads, you need to sign in, and we'll send you a link. So just comment in Facebook and we will send you a link to that free download. There is meditation, and there's a little instruction video, how to get more in touch with that quiet, still voice inside of you, which is connected to the divine. All right? We are infinite and we are finite at the same time. And it is through silence, it is through meditation, it is through mindfulness and awareness. And that can be through running, it can be through guitar playing, it could be through all manner of activity. But it has to be in a meditative state, which is not in a logical place, okay? And we don't do enough of that in the West. There's a saying, my brother taught me this, bless you, Mike, he said, don't just do something, sit there, sit and allow. I tell you, some days it's excruciating. However, totally necessary. All right, thank you. Pillar three, again, foundational. Our relationship to other people, to others. Now, this book, and you can see it, When Society Becomes an Addict, Ann Wilson Schaefer. She maintains that 97% of the Western world is addicted to a person, a behavior, or a substance. So nobody beats the rap, guys. It's all in degrees. Some of us are so codependent with a relationship, but we're not addicted to a substance. Some of us have been addicted to a substance, but we're not codependent. So it's all in degrees. We have been broken in our relationship to others, okay? The reason why I maintain is because we've been broken in our relationship to the divine from childhood. Because in the last 50 years, things have shifted so radically away from spirit and church and connection to other powers, shifted so radically that we've lost connection to self, to the universe, and to others. There are three main rules that happen when we're growing up in a dysfunctional family. And like I say, 97% of us have grown up in this way. And these are the rules. You don't talk about it, you don't trust, and you don't feel. Right? And my work, when I went into therapy and started looking at all this, I had to learn to talk about it. I had to learn to trust other human beings and the divine. And I had to learn how to feel. I used to think I was having a feeling. And they say the longest journey is between the head and the heart. The longest journey between the head and the heart. And now I know that I feel, right? I know that I've learned how to trust not only people, but my divine power. and I have learned how to talk. Because I was a freezer, talking still can be a challenge. So I write. I'm also a writer and a communicator that way. And I say to people, if you can't talk yet, write it out and then read it to the person that you're wanting to speak to from the heart. Okay? That's a mechanism on how to counteract some of these old beliefs. These are all beliefs we were raised in, and now why it's so hard for us to prosper is because we don't even realize that those were three of the cardinal rules. You don't talk about it, you don't trust, you don't feel. And we're having to break out of that. The other thing that we unconsciously learned when we were growing up is that whether your father or mother or a sibling was unwell, or your father was a rager, or your mother was an alcoholic, or she was a rager, or she was chronically sick, whatever the machination was, that somehow the blame came onto us. It's unconscious. I'm not saying she or he did it consciously, but somehow we learned that we had to control the situation. We call these the 3 C's. Somehow we learned to control. We learned somehow that we're supposed to cure whatever's ailing everybody else. And the third is that somehow we're the cause of this chaos that's happening. And while we're in recovery and trying to become the most magnificent being that we want to be, you know, alive, excited, passionate, right? Have deep relationships, have more of peace of mind. How do we move from there is to relinquish control, is to find out that we can't cure anybody and that we never were the cause of someone else's anger, someone else's dysfunction, someone else's whatever their weirdness. I call it walking on eggshells. We grew up walking on eggshells, and in life we take that into the public realm. We may, or we're the bully now, and people walk on eggshells around us. So it can manifest in 2 ways. We may have picked up the behavior of that parent as that's the way you live through life, that's how you cope, and therefore people are afraid of you, and you're not approachable. So people walk on eggshells. So you didn't cause it, you can't control it, and you're not going to cure it. Now, I want to see a show of hands. Just say, yep. Are you a control freak? Because I was a massive control freak. And in some ways I still am in some areas of my life. So just say, yep, control. Which is an area that we have to relinquish and learn to receive. Yeah. Okay, so somebody's not sure, and that's cool. That's totally cool. Yep, some are learning that control doesn't work and we have to move to flow. We have to learn to move to surrender. We're all in different places on our path. I have this analogy. This is a garden analogy, which I love to use. And for those of you who have children or work with children or have grandchildren, it's a beautiful analogy for them. And that is, we all have a beautiful life. The analogy is we have a garden. And in the garden, we have a fence around us. Okay? Pick whatever fence you want, a white fence, a picket fence, a whatever kind. And we are responsible for what happens within that fence, in the garden. We're responsible for cultivating of it, the nurturance of it, the fertilizing of it, the watering of it, meaning our life. We are responsible for our own happiness and our own peace of mind. Nobody can take it from us. It's our garden. But where our dysfunction takes us is we leap over into other people's gardens. We start looking into their garden and saying, oh, wow, your soil needs some water. Let me water it for you. Or, you know, why did you choose to do that course and not this one? Right? So it's like we're taking care of other people, and our garden is ending up being dry, is being neglected. Things are dying. And everybody else's garden that we've nurtured and watered, it's prospering. And we go home at night and we're exhausted. And we go home at night having people pleased and been overly responsible, and we have a glass of wine to calm our nerves down because we feel like we need to reward ourselves or to take care of ourselves. Okay? Especially children, teach them this analogy, because there is no language for a child to say, please back off. You're an adult. You're messing in my garden. But if they can say, you're messing in my garden, it's a polite way of saying back off. What we need to learn to do is create boundaries, not walls. I had big walls up when I moved into recovery. And I had to take them down brick by brick. Because a wall is immovable. But a boundary, we can move. On a good day, we can move the boundary over here. On a bad day, we're allowed to move the boundary back here. Right? Because we have enough self-esteem and enough self-worth to say, today, I need to take care of myself. My boundary is over here. So we have to serve ourselves. We have to take care of ourselves. We have to move away from those belief systems of being a good girl. Good girls do this. Good girls don't. Like, good girls water other people's gardens. Good girls take care of them. It's like, you know what? Some of us need to learn how to be a bad girl. We need to instill a little bit of self-love. And I call it the bad girl. You've got to have a little bit more of that. Say no. Learn to say no. And then the backlash of guilt will show up. And then you have to have more self-love to take care of that guilt. So these are the 3 pillars that I have personally experienced, which are foundational, right at the very bottom, that we need to stand on in order for prosperity to begin. Okay? And what I would love for you to do now is make any general comments that you have about today, and on the Facebook page, here, as you like. Tomorrow, I'm going to speak about a deeper relationship to self, our unconscious, a place in us that we rarely touch into, but we can, that exists right now. Now, you know, some call it hypnotherapy. I don't choose to call it that. I call it a visualization. It's the inner child odyssey. I'm going to take you on a bit of an odyssey to meet a part of yourself that perhaps you haven't met yet. Or you have, but now you need to revisit and revisit and revisit. So come back tomorrow, same time, wherever the zone is for you, and tell me, write in the number 2 if you're committed to being here tomorrow. Let's just see number 2. Yes, Deb's got it there. Great. And once again, everybody, I am just thrilled that you're here, you're listening, that you are going to be able to take some of this information and put it into practice. And I know that when you start to serve yourself, your prosperity is going to grow. It's not logical. And we have to, we defy logic, because we're working with powers so much greater than ourselves. And I'll leave you with the fact of the matter is, from the age of 18 years old to today, I have not had a straight job. I have only lived in trust, faith, and belief in my co-creator, my employer, which is the divine. And I know a lot of you have a connection to the divine, and you want more, which means you're going to have to ramp up that connection with the big energy in the sky. And I'm testament that it's possible. I'm testament that freedom of mind, peace, all manner of relationships, intimacy, depth, money, cars, houses, jewelry, all of the material stuff, but most importantly, the peace. So, my darlings, I leave you now. I went a little bit over the 30 minutes. Thank you all for hanging in. And we'll see you tomorrow. Keep the faith. Love you.